that we are chosen as one of these elected officials, selected agencies, to do this survey. It's going to affect the entire industry on how our Medicare reimbursement is actually structured.
And I think, Tim, you communicated to there were 14 agencies, I believe, in our region on the list. Tim has communicated with each one of them, so they know that they're on the list for this year. The American Ambulance Association and Onion are doing a lot of educational stuff around the country. The National Association of EMTs is doing a project specifically on rural ambulance services, which is for small rural ambulance services, trying to give them a tool they can use to help them comply, because there's a big difference between, you know, Les at Mohawk, who can walk into the CFO's office and go, here, fill this out, and, you know, Peter in Dwaynesburg, who walks into his own office, hands it to himself, and then has to figure out how to do the whole thing, even though I don't think you were on the list, Peter.
I am not.
But so that's what's going to happen from the NAEMT perspective. Anything from our ET3 agencies? Has anyone heard anything other than not yet? Did they give you a maybe date yet? March?
They said it's not going to be till at least March.
It's not going to be till at least March. Okay, so, all right.
Spring in the Northeast, it could be
Okay,
August.
so everyone is hurry upping and waiting, right? Okay. For those of you interested in what's happening at the federal level, NAEMT EMS Day on the Hill is March 25th. And there's an EMS Transformation Summit that's on what's happening in EMS at the state levels as well. I know some of you in the room I've run into there over the past couple of years, and I'll be there again this year. And then we already covered the EMS provider mental health and suicide prevention. Okay. All right, operational reports. Dr. Daly.
We did not bring up our intravenous nitro program at this medical standards meeting because it was quite a full agenda, to say the least. We did have a chance to look at some of the data. The program is going incredibly well. I would just ask agencies that are coming on board with this to make sure REMO's aware. The reports are coming through as they're supposed to through the electronic platform, so we can keep an eye on how this is working. But we are seeing across the board decreases in respiratory rate, increases in oxygen saturation in all the patients that are getting the intravenous nitroglycerin for congestive heart failure as we had hoped. So working very well. I did have one case with some transient hypotension without harm. Sorry, Terry. But that was one case out of nearly 30 now, which is great, and most importantly, no harm. But that's really all we've got on a regional perspective now.
Dr. McHugh. REMAC and academic.
Meetings next week.
Okay, cool. Make sure I have that. All right. PJ, Treasurer's Report.
Very quickly, due to time, you all should have received by email the December Treasurer's Report. Nothing significant in there. We lost $40,000, which is comparable to last September. What I want to tell you is that we had to make a revised year-end Treasurer's statement from September 30th. There was a receivable from New York State that we didn't know that we had at the time for $11,000. Which was to the good. So, Jeff, to answer your point, the training course ended up at a plus $55,000 for the year. That's it.
All right. Do we, PJ, need to give the council the copy of with the changes? Should we at least to distribute to the whole council the end of fiscal year report with those changes?
Tim can distribute that if you like.
Tim, can you have that sent to everyone so everyone at least see it? Sure. And obviously, we'll see the audited financials after the auditor finishes working on that. Okay. QI, Deb, I think Deb is going to give the report on the QI committee today, and I know the QI committee meets next week too.
We do meet next week. I included a handout out on the table that just actually brought you up to date from the entire past year. One of the most important things that occurred last year is that Jess Turek joined us, so now that we're fully staffed, we were able to do many more things. So I'll just hit some highlights. Please feel free to send me email if you look through the report, or actually the memo, and see anything that doesn't make sense to you. CARES is the major project. The data for EMS agencies is due in by Friday of this week for all of 2019, and there is only one agency that's outstanding on that. All other agencies are finished. Hospital data due in by February of 2020, with the annual report coming out in March, I believe. That will reflect data from 4 counties. We've added Columbia County, now just starting to add data January, so next year we'll have a reflection of at least 5 counties and likely all 6, because the intention is to bring Remsco on board this year. We have some ongoing projects. The big one is provider impressions. There's a work group developing regional impressions, a regional impression list. To make sense of that, if you work in one agency and someone calls 911 with I don't feel well, that could be coded as I don't feel well, general malaise, sick person, or any other combination, and there's an effort to try and standardize those, with attention paid to those agencies or counties that need additional impressions. The example that is very clear is the town of Guilderland. It has St. Peter's Health Partners, Spark, and they need some impressions that perhaps other agencies wouldn't need to have. We are working on supplemental equipment list, and where that is right at the moment is agencies are being canvassed for costs or any other issues. And we did repeat our ambulance parking study, which is actually ambulance patient offload time. That's the correct abbreviation. And as bad as it sometimes seems when we're waiting in emergency departments to turn over our patients, we're actually better than most of the country. We do chart audits. There's been no trends identified. As you can see there, we're very much involved in committee work when somebody tells me the right time. There's some humor for that from Schenectady County. But we are very much involved in attending committees and bringing those types of things back to REMO, both the QI, the academic, and the REMAC. Of note is the Pediatric Emergency Care Committee. I serve as the regional facilitator along with Carol Brandt. So we've been trying to bolster some things there, and you can see that we did sponsor some people last year to attend conferences. Some older things, our new protocol exam is up and running thanks to the work group that submitted new questions based on the protocols. Let's see, we are doing the electronic monitoring of the IV nitroglycerin, but we're also doing some electronic monitoring of BLS CPAP, which is an expensive endeavor for agencies. So we are taking a look at that for them. And you've already heard about the image trend. EPCR providers have access, and there has been one training night with another one scheduled. Some things we're looking forward to, of course, are adding Rensselaer County to the CARES data. We do have our instructor updates in our CLI course. We'll probably have a second CLI course this year based on immediately filling our first one. And we are looking, seeking out some grant opportunities to support agencies in the region. And then the statistics are there for credentialing and all of the other data that we collect or facilitate for the Department of Health. Anybody have any questions for me?
Any questions for QI? All right, next is the CON committee. Jimmy is not here tonight, but they have reviewed the Grafton Berlin Transfer of Operating Authority Certificate, Transfer Authority request. It was deemed deficient and returned to them for further action. Next on the agenda, we have got 2 DOH disciplinary actions that are in full printing. They are Wade Edgar, Brooklyn, New York, had his certification suspended, and Michael Alicia of Woodhaven, New York, had his certification revoked. So, we have for your informational Colony EMS EMT refresher course at Original starting in January. Now we've got correspondence. Number 1, we have a letter from Schenectady County advising that Captain Wogaki did I get it right?
Yep, absolutely.
Excellent. Will replace Dave as the Remsco rep, and also the appointment of Patrick. And I guess Kevin, you're being appointed, but you were already here. So Kevin is still here. All right. Then we have letters from the chair, vice chair, and treasurer expressing interest in reappointment. Tonight, we're supposed to have our elections. There also is a letter that was received yesterday by the nominating committee chair from Lynn, who is not here tonight, that she would like to run for secretary. And we received a letter from Secretary Bowman stating he's not interested in serving another term as secretary. And finally, DOH advising us that Dr. Daly's term on the CMAC has expired, meaning we have to appoint someone to the CMAC. All right. Committee reports, nothing from the executive committee, nothing from the finance committee, other than we continue to enjoy the unreasonably robust stock market. And what goes up, hopefully, will stay up. New York State EMS Council met. I'm going to dispense with most of the report until the next meeting, just a few little things. The New York State EMS Council and the CMAC are now going to meet 4 times a year instead of 3 times a year, twice in the spring, twice in the fall. That's sort of an acknowledgement that there's some good work being done there, so there'll be more things happening. At this last meeting, a lot of work was done on clearing off the decks to do ambulance standards, so New York State will have some new standards for ambulance construction soonish. Also, there's a group working on equipment standards for revisions of Part 800, what we carry in our ambulances, so we should have that soonish. A lot of discussion about provider suicide as well. And then the New York State EMS Memorial, Tuesday, May 19th, that's during EMS week. There will be 3 names going on the memorial this year. We always count on folks from this region to turn out and help see a lot of ambulances on Empire State Plaza that day. And we're going to be repeating again the New York State EMS Community Day, Sunday, May 17th. That is a day when ambulance agencies are being asked to go out into the community and do some sort of activity in the community that showcases us, not by bringing the community into us, but by us going out. My agency's already figured out we're going to go to the local town library and we're going to do a Stop the Bleed class and a CPR class that's open to the public and put the ambulances on display and things like that. So ask everybody to the State Department of Health will be sending you the memo about what everyone's being asked to do, and put it on your Facebook page and the like. And we already talked about the workforce report that I think everybody has. Nurses Committee, Anne Marie.
Our meeting is February 11th.
Okay. DJ, MCI Committee?
No report.
Lynn is not here for a membership report. Lynn had been asked to put together a letter for us to send to agencies for us to request that for people to nominate people for at-large seats on the Remsco. She had not replied to Tim's information. However, I did learn just tonight that apparently Lynn has been ill, had been hospitalized, but she's home now.
I believe so,
So,
yes, she's on it.
but I don't know anything more about that. MCI membership nominating committee, Maria.
Actually, most of my report was given under correspondence.
Okay.
So, I don't have anything to add.
All right, awards committee, Brian Wood. Brian could not be here tonight. He has let us know that he would be willing to chair the awards committee for this year's cycle, but he requests that we find somebody else for 2021 since his new job responsibilities are keeping him busy. He has asked that Tim would substitute, we already have the Physician of Excellence Award description, substitute the words physician assistant and nurse practitioner in so that we create a regional award. So if you remember last year, we did not get a nomination for physician, but we got a nomination for PA, but we created a special an award for PAs and nurse practitioners that work in the ED. So Tim, if you're able to create that language and bring it to the next meeting. And I think the other thing we need to know is when we probably don't need to know tonight, but probably at the February meeting, Tim, we're gonna need to know our awards deadline based on when the state's awards deadline is going to be. Because we probably have to start telling the agencies to do this in February, because they're probably gonna have to have it in March, if I remember the way the calendar works.
Actually, I had a note here, set deadline date for award nominations, so.
Okay, so we'll have that at the next meeting? Okay. All right, nothing on bylaws. County reports, Albany, Brian's not here. Unless, okay, Columbia, PJ?
No report.
Green, Steve? We bored him out, we bored the hell out of him. All right, Rensselaer,
Just to let you know, February 3rd, we're starting our next round of EMT class. That'll be at WF Bruin in East Greenbush. Applications have just gone out. And Rensselaer County is progressing with their new fire EMS training tower and training facility. They haven't broken ground yet. They're still going through all of the preliminary things, but they hope to break ground in the spring.
that's pretty exciting. Cool.
It's gonna be at the same location as the old one. They're gonna tear it all down and start all over.
All right, come on, Kevin, give us something from Saratoga.
I don't, Pat, do you have anything?
Yeah, at our last EMS council meeting, there was a couple questions that got raised, and I think this council can probably provide some clarification, maybe a little history in regards to those topics. And again, I come to these meetings sporadically previously, so I mean, subject matter that may have already been discussed, and maybe you already have an answer for me. But the first one is my understanding that several years ago, Remo assisted agencies with the purchase of modems to send EKGs to area hospitals, utilizing the radio service fee. That's my understanding. And it's also our understanding that at the end of this year, those modems will become obsolete with the integration service providers going to a 4G service. So I was curious, has there been any discussion amongst the committee of, again, providing supplemental funding to area agencies to assist them in the purchase of these modems?
I think last time we voted to do it for the last time. That's my recollection. Yeah, because we bought them all first, and then we had the 3G conversion, and they said, okay, we'll do this one more time, because it kind of caught everybody as a surprise.
Okay, so the answer is no then?
Well, you can always bring it up for discussion, but I think that was the background.
I think the answer, Pat, is the last time it was very much of a surprise that the 2G service was just going away. And that was something that, anyway, I'm gonna screw up the Gs, but
It was 2G.
I think it was the 2G going away to the 3G was what we had. But one way or the other, it was a surprise that was inflicted upon us with no way for it to impact the budget cycle. This one, on the other hand, should not be a surprise to anybody, because there was well over 2 years of notice on this cycle of obsolescence. But if any agency has crisis and can't meet that need, I think that would be a really appropriate thing for someone to bring. But that would be an agency that's having a crisis, and we should talk about that and deal with it the same way we would any other crisis that an agency was facing.
What constitutes crisis?
That, I think, is determined by the individual agency.
So what committee would this be appropriate for if Pat wanted to bring it to committee?
I think we come here. I
Would
think
come
it'd be
to committee or
appropriate
directly
to come here.
To here?
Yeah. I would probably ask for anybody to do that, to bring it to a small group here first to discuss it and see how that should be appropriately presented. But I think that's something that would be a discussion item would certainly be reasonable.
Okay.
But I know that last time we were very, very clear, and actually, if I remember correctly, the contract that agencies signed at the time of getting those modems included their understanding that this was a one-time, let's get through this immediate crisis. And it also included some very specific quality metrics that agencies were supposed to share. So there was a significant amount of information exchange at that point.
That's kind of what I was looking for, also the history lesson behind this. And maybe if we had, who would have the criteria that you're describing from probably 7 years ago now? That being in
If
minutes, probably?
Tim still has it.
The old, are you referring to the old contracts?
Yeah, those contracts.
Yeah, I should have,
I'm
I
sure you
should,
still
I think I
have
have them all still on
Yeah.
the computer. I can give you a copy of one, you know, as an example, is that,
Well, it sounds like that you guys spelled out the criteria that would be required to receive supplemental funding. Is that, am I understanding that?
That was the
Wasn't
goal
it?
behind those contracts. When we did those.
no, wait, say that again. Spelled out the criteria for agencies to receive supplemental
There
funding?
wasn't any timeline.
No, when we assisted people with the purchase of the modem the last time, there was a contract that everybody signed. as part of
Correct. There was contract both rounds, I believe. So I could,
We assisted everybody, I think.
yes, we did. It was across the board. No, it was across the board,
If you had a life pack,
yeah.
if you use something else in the life pack, then you're.
Yeah, if you had equipment that needed to be upgraded, yeah. Yeah, I think that's actually really good. You know, Anon is just been,
We've been going 2 hours, I need like a break if we're not gonna wrap up soon.
no.
Want to take, how long break?
I mean, if we can wrap up in 10 minutes, I'll stick it out, but I need a break soon.
Terry, I
so.
don't think there's anybody in the room that's not gonna agree with that.
10 minutes.
10 minutes, I'm
We could either, well, we could either wrap up in 10 minutes so Terry can take a break, or that would mean not have, do you want to have elections next month instead of tonight? Just because that takes a while? Would anyone care? That would be a way to finish
I
up
make a
fast.
motion to elections next month.
All right, any discussion? All right, we'll do that next month. Then we can wrap this up. Okay.
One more piece of historical information for Pat, and that's, there were agencies in that previous, was it 7 years ago? But anyway, the last time we had this modem crisis, who actually elected to not go with the modems at all, and switched to a Wi-Fi system instead of doing the modem upgrade, because they found it easier operationally.
Yeah, Hyperraptor or something else, it was another brand, right?
There were other ways of doing it, because there was already other integrated technology within the modem. And I remember Malaysia in particular was one that went with that instead.
We ended up buying the dual band Wi-Fi 3G modems, and we have Wi-Fi, but MiFi is on all of our ambulances, so we just use that for transmission of EKGs to hospitals and to EMS yards.
It sounds like I got my answer, I can bring back to our council. So my second question would be in regards to pharmaceuticals, the elevated expense of pharmaceuticals. There is one agency within our council that is seeking out the possibility of collaborating with Albany Med to get medications and have Albany Med be a distribution center for them. Has anybody done that, or can they even do that? Are there DOH or FDA regulations that prohibit Albany Med from providing that service?
You can pick any hospital and get an agreement with them.
Well, most
Several
hospitals,
people have agreements with L's as well.
they do?
Yeah.
Most hospitals are shooting county.
They just have to get,
agencies
they
down.
have to have a wholesale license for the narcotic part of it.
I know Saratoga Springs and Glens Falls are both not willing to participate in that.
Yeah, they just need to get a wholesale license, so that you can do all the, you can do L's, you can do any other one.
For narcotics, you have to make sure that your plan gets updated with the state.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But the hospital itself needs to,
Right.
one of their pharmacists needs to have a wholesale license, which is a whole blueprint to the pharmacy and things like that to get approved.
All right, thank you, Dr. McGee, appreciate that.
All right, Schenectady.
No report.
Okay. Hudson Mohawk CMAC representative, Dr. Daly has requested to continue as our CMAC rep. To my knowledge, I do not know of anybody else who is seeking that title. So,
just
I make a motion.
we have a motion? Second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor with asking Dr. Daly to continue? Aye. Okay. We're going to do our elections the next month. We already did the new delegates. Does anyone object to doing the we should do that tonight. So Remo Incentive Compensation Plan, in November, we allowed the disbursement of half of the funds, and we talked about having the treasurer and I go back and sit down with Tim to understand what was happening with our finances. One of the things that has happened, and I think I'll ask PJ to describe what has happened, we've changed how we account for some of our funds to have a more transparent set of books. This is the latest step in years of doing this.
Well, essentially, real quickly, you know, we've broken out the training program. It took us about a year to be able to do that. And when I looked at the incentive compensation that Dave had come up with, I didn't agree with the number that he had. So we went back and looked at it and found out that there was an error, what we perceived to be an error. What we found out, in general, the one of the salaries was not included in the training program, which we believe should have been included. So there'll be an adjustment there moving forward. However, what we decided was that budget was already passed for the previous year, $12,000 for that. Tim has worked up the percentages for each person, and what we've agreed to is that for this coming year, we will revisit that. And now that we have a true handle on the profit and loss of the training program for this budget year, we'll come up with another formula. Is that correct, Steve?
Yeah, so what we would like to do is ask the Remsco to approve the releasing of the second half of the budgeted incentive compensation monies with the recognition that going forward, so for the fiscal year right now, we have now got a more accurate measurement of the profit and loss of the training program than we've ever had before, and asking Tim to propose to the council by June 1st, actually by May 1st, so it could be considered at the May and June meetings, a new formula for us to use for incentive compensation for the current fiscal year that takes into account the new way that we calculate the training surplus.
Revenue and expense.
Right. So we would need a motion for the second half of that $6,000 payout.
Motion.
Okay, motion, second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I gotta know, we have 3 minutes left of Terry's clock. All right, Saratoga County Medicaid MA plan, Remsco approval, mutual aid plan, okay. So,
That just needs Remsco approval now.
Have
DOH is
we-
looking for that.
have we-
I sent that to everybody, yes.
okay, yep, Mike?
The only problem with the mutual aid plan is it actually includes helicopter services, which actually isn't a mutual aid component of mutual aid. So it's really an operational plan for Saratoga County, which frankly I think is fine, as long as you recognize it includes elements that are outside true mutual aid and don't require our approval.
Right.
So, Saratoga County reps, do you wanna go back and take that out, or just have it approved this way and?
Have it approved the way it is, yeah.
Okay, okay, all right, so everyone's gotten a chance to read it, is there any discussion? We have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in discussion? Okay, in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Saratoga Mutual Aid Plan, we've already done the expenditure for EMS mental health. Dr. Daly, tuition for NAEMSP quality course.
Discussion on it for next time.
Next month, okay, next month, okay. Is there any old business or any other new business? Any items from the floor? Next meeting date, February 24th, 2020, 6 p.m. Thank you, everyone. I know it was a long meeting, but we had a month off and we really covered an important topic tonight. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, second, all in favor?